Okay, let's continue with the Tao of Jeet, page number 43. He's talking a lot more about combative techniques now, so if you have any feedback or questions, you could provide them. If not, we're just going to read through each one. The outstanding characteristic of the expert athlete is his ease of movement, even during maximal effort. The novice is characterized by his tenseness, wasted motion, and excessive effort. That rare person, the natural athlete, seems to be endowed with the ability to undertake any sport activity, whether he is experienced in it or not, with ease. The ease is his ability to perform with the minimal antagonistic tension. It is more present in some athletes than in others, but can be improved by all. The fighters whose movements seem awkward, who never seems to find the proper distance, is always being timed, never outguesses his opponent, and always gives warning of his intentions before they become serious, is suffering chiefly from a lack of coordination. The well-coordinated fighter does everything smoothly and gracefully. He seems to glide in and out of distance with a minimum of effort and a maximum of deception. His timing is usually good because his own movements are so rhythmical, they tend to establish complementary rhythm on the part of his opponent, a rhythm he can break into to his own advantage because of his perfect control of his own muscles. He seems to outguess his opponent because he usually takes the initiative and to a large extent forces the reactions of his opponent. Above all, he makes his movements with a purpose rather than with a doubting hope, because he has confidence in himself.
May I add something to that?
Yeah.
It's both the part before this part and this part, I feel speaks specifically to me and like the sparring. Like everything that's wrong with everything I've been doing sparring is like, space, tension, as far as like rhythm, like breaking into your opponent's rhythm and being on rhythm with him. It's like all that stuff is stuff that I feel like the drills and all that stuff even helped me on. Like this is like him talking about specifically that.
I think it was really evident because when you first started, remember you couldn't even jump rope.
Right.
Like it was like really bad, right? But now you're like really good at jump roping, like better than a lot of us. That's coordination, and that's one thing he's talking about right now that I don't really mention that often, but he's highlighting how important it is to have coordination. Like somebody might be very strong, but if he's uncoordinated, he can't really be good at like martial arts, like sparring, So it's not just about strength and flexibility and speed, but it's about coordinate. A lot of it is coordination. So I noticed like Shazay is a drummer and he plays music, so I think that helps with coordination sometimes. And then Bang is like a dancer, helps with coordination. A lot of great martial artists are great dancers. I remember you're giving me like a lot of tips on trying to rap with the flow. I think you have practice in that, but that's a verbal thing. This is more like the physical expression of it, like having everything coordinate in some type of rhythm. And that's something you have to learn. He even mentioned it himself, said that not everybody's good at it, but everybody can improve. Everybody can improve in the coordination. So we'll have to try to, I'll try to come up with more exercises, more drills where we work on better coordination. Like even someone like my father, he's really bad. He's not coordinated in certain movements. So like there's certain people you can see right away that they're not coordinated, and that really prevents their development, especially in the sparring aspect of it, So,
yeah. The meditation really connects for me with that, with the coordination as well, because part of it, for me, the coordination just comes from being able to relax. Like, you can't, this coordination is about movement, and movement is about fluidity, and fluidity is about loose. If you're tight and not relaxed, you can't move. So sometimes just the breathing helps. I remember when I was a kid, I used to be shy and like nervous, like dancing, or going to dances and stuff like that. Tight. It's just tight, you know. I remember, you know, once I got confident, it was just a little more comfortable. It was easy. You know, I mean, I'm not a dancer, but I could keep a beat, and I can, you know, I feel like everybody's got rhythm. It's just a matter of you can find it within you.
Yeah, just like and you notice that coordination training, it doesn't really require much fitness. It's just like, it's almost like dancing or playing music. It's not that much fitness. It's just practice to get better at coordination. And that's another type of development that Bruce Lee reminds me that we need to focus on for certain people that don't have it. Is like more specific drills or exercises that focus on building coordination.
Getting comfortable in your own body.
Yeah. So, next one. Muscles have no power to guide themselves, but the manner in which they act and consequently the effectiveness of our performances depends absolutely on how the nervous system guides them. Thus, a badly executed move is the result of impulses sent to the wrong muscles by the nervous system, or sent a fraction of a second too soon or too late, or sent in improper sequence or in poorly apportioned intensity.
It's scientific.
It's the secret sauce right there.
That's some science for your ass.
But he's talking about something where when I bought that core bag, in the description section, it mentioned like how like your brain controls all your body movements. So if your brain is sharp, then your muscles will respond quicker, your reaction will respond quicker. So it's just very important. It's not just about being strong, but if you have a good like brain and you train your brain to react quick and respond quick, so then your muscles react quick, then that's one of the key elements to reaching like a very high level. So not just focusing on body development, but also your brain. And this is like sparring. It brings out all your weaknesses, you know, and you'll see the difference. You know, when somebody's slow to respond, he might be strong, but he's just slow to respond because his brain is not the information. It's not processing the information quick enough or in a coordinated fashion, and then they're not performing well. That's different than like saying you're just working out just to look good, but you never test out your body movements in any type of sport or martial art and things like that. Then you can see, you know, then you'll see the flaws, you know, of the lack of brain development. So I think when we train the wooden dummy, it should kind of be apparent. Like when you're learning it and you're still trying to remember it, then everything slows down, and then you stop, and then you second guess yourself, and then you pause and you have doubts. But then when you know it, then it just flows, and then like that's kind of how sparring is supposed to be. It just flows, like you don't even think about it, you know. And I think when you work in the wooden dummy, it kind of shows you the processes of how the brain sends informations to your muscles to move and respond a certain way.
May I add something to your comments?
Yeah.
Like you said, with responding or like martial arts or just the flow. Somebody told me actually years ago, learning martial arts is kind of like an alphabet. Like, you know, you learn the ABCs, then eventually you put the, you know, letters together to make words, and like sparring can be like a conversation. Like you get so well to where you can speak the language of the martial arts through sparring.
Yes. Yes.
It's the same in drumming too. Kind of speaking the language, being able to flow, understand what the other person's saying.
Well-executed movement means the nervous system has been trained to the point where it sends impulses to certain muscles, causing these muscles to contract at exactly the proper fraction of a second. At the same time, impulses to the antagonistic muscles are shut off, allowing those muscles to relax. Properly coordinated impulses surge with just the exact intensity required, and they stop at the exact fraction of a second when they are no longer needed. That really gets me to think about our controlled safe sparring, like being able to go like high speed, high intensity and stop in a fraction of a second because you have such good control of your body. Like no contact, touch contact, light contact, medium contact. And it's just like having total control of your body, like very precise, down to the, inches, down to the centimeters, down to the millimeters. And it's just like shooting a target, like you get the bullseye, like, or almost get the bullseye, like every single shot, even from a far distance. And your muscles, you have such precision that you could hold back each punch, each kick with a complete precision. And when you need to use it and you need to go all out, then you go ahead and do it. And you know what you're doing. You're not accidentally hurting somebody because you know you have control of your body and there's no accidents. If you intend to hurt somebody, you will. If you don't want to hurt them, then you won't, because you have that control of your body, that type of precision. And it takes a lot of practice to get to that point. It's not just like throwing on boxing gloves and just go at it, go as hard as you want. It's not that. It's control of your body, every little part of it, and that's something that really separates the martial arts from just like combat sport, for example, where they use certain protective gear or certain equipment to just serve as like an unconscious control. But when you're a martial artist, you have conscious control, and you know exactly what you're doing. You know if you want to jab out their eye, you do that. If you want to chop them in the throat, you're going to do that. If you want to punch them in the face, you'll do that. If you want to punch them in the sternum, you're going to do that. If you want to punch them in the groin area, you're going to do that. If you're going to, kick them in the ankle, you're going to do that. If you're going to kick them in the knee, you'll do that. You kick them in the groin area, you're going to do that. Like, you know exactly what you're doing at all times. And then when you tell your body to do it, it does it immediately, with precision. And that's, that takes a lot of training to get to that point, but that's pretty much what I aim for and try to train you guys to get to as well. Therefore, learning coordination is a matter of training the nervous system and not a question of training muscles. The transition from totally uncoordinated muscular effort to skill of the highest perfection is a process of developing the connections in the nervous system. Psychologists and biologists tell us that the billions of elements in the nervous system are not in direct connection with each other, but that the fibers of one nerve cell intertwine with those of other cells in such close proximity that impulses can pass from one to others by a process of induction. This point at which the impulse passes from one nerve cell to another is called the synapse. The synapse theory explains why the baby who displayed totally uncoordinated responses at the sight of a ball eventually becomes the big league ball player.
It's really interesting how he's speaking about it. I mean, just the science of the body, and the brain, and how all that shit works. It's fascinating. I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about martial arts in that way.
Yeah, I mean, it got me to think about it too. Like when I was reading, it's just like the difference between Bruce Lee and what he was representing, like martial arts, with intelligence and backed by science, opposed to just what we're normally used to seeing, just somebody who's just an animal fighting,
Right.
And they don't speak, and if they speak, they can barely speak, and they don't even know, their mind isn't developed. Bruce Lee's speaking like a scientist right now, and it's just showing how well balanced like a martial artist is supposed to be, not just in his physical development, but his mental development and his spiritual development. this point of the book is more of a mental mind demonstration of what he was expressing. The earlier parts of the book was more of a spiritual expression. So it's just interesting to see, you know, the scientific standpoint, and really, if you understand the science, you develop the mind, you can really get yourself to a very high level. It's not just all about the body, and it's proven with these guns. For example, they're created by, you know, pretty much scientists, and the guns are the ones that are really, you know, giving just any person an immense amount of power over another person, and that's because of science. And atomic bombs is science. Albert Einstein helped create the atom bombs. So you look at all this technology, all these cars that we're just talking about, is science. The power of science is immense, and scientists are very, very intelligent people. They're not necessarily extremely physically fit. You don't see Albert Einstein doing 2-finger push-ups. You know what I'm saying? Sparring. So, but it's just interesting how unique Bruce was, how he brings it together with the body and the mind and the spirit. Training for skill, coordination is purely a matter of forming proper connections in the nervous system through practice, precision practice. Each performance of an act strengthens the connections involved and makes the next performance easier, more certain, and more readily done. Likewise, disuse tends to weaken any pathways that have been formed and makes doing of the act more difficult and uncertain. Constant exercises. Thus, we can attain skill only by actually doing the thing we are trying to learn. We learn solely by doing or reacting. When learning to form pathways, be sure the actions are the most economical as well as the most efficient use of energy and motion.
Sounds like I hear the phrase like muscle memory.
Yes.
When you're doing something, you kind of, at that point, your muscles just kind of remember, like shooting a free throw or something like that.
Yes. Yeah, I think when he's talking about building coordination, it's like practicing technique. It doesn't really take much fitness. It's just like constant practice of technique until it gets fluid and everything's in coordination. So that's essentially what a lot of these forms are developed for. Is to develop. It's supposed to develop coordination, and he's talking about when you practice, also practice these techniques. Make sure that it's efficient and economical. So, you know, I try to make the tiger form, the phoenix form, like serve that purpose. You know, to develop those connections in the nervous system. So then you develop better coordination. So we got that strength training, we got the flexibility training that we're doing right now, and we're doing that mental training at the same time right now. So mental flexibility, we just did the strength training. The combat training is is the forms and the actual sparring, working drills, hitting focus mitts, building that constant, you know, repetition of good technique, so then everything becomes fluid when you need it. To become a champion requires a condition of readiness that causes the individual to approach with pleasure even the most tedious practice session. The more ready the person is to respond to the stimulus, the more satisfaction he finds in the response, and the more unready he is, the more annoying he finds it to be forced to act. Do not practice finely skilled movements after you are tired, for you will begin to substitute gross motions for finer ones and generalized efforts for specific ones. Remember, wrong movements tend to supervene and the athlete's progress is set back. Thus, the athlete practices fine skills only while he is fresh. When he becomes fatigued, he shifts to the task employing gross movements designed principally to develop endurance. So basically saying, don't do a bunch of freaking spin kicks when you're tired as hell. Like, do it when you're fresh. Like the fine movements. The fine movements are like very precise. We talked about it we talked a lot about it in the police academy, and there's a scientific training course that I went through called Pressure Point Control Tactics, where they had a book pretty much the size of this that was extremely scientific, teaching all the science behind everything that they did. And they did talk about this part about the fine skilled movements and then the gross skilled movements. Fine skilled movements is like you pointing a gun, aiming, and shooting at the bullseye. Gross skill is just, you don't got time for that, you just draw and shoot. You know, and the fact of the matter is, most of everything that happens out in the street is going to be gross movements. And very small percentage of the population will be able to execute finely skilled movements in a very dynamic, dangerous situation. Very small percentage of the population. So the police academy doesn't even teach you the fine motor skills because they pretty much discount it as useless because the person will just operate off of gross movements as soon as he's in danger. So gross movement is like us doing the jab and cross when we're in danger. Like, it just gets down to the basics of combat. Fine-tuned movements are like the reverse hook kick. You know, you're in danger, all right, reverse hook kick, spin kick, spinning back fist, like the things that require more like fine-tuning. That's stuff that takes a lot of repetition and practice execution to get things like perfectly done. Gross motor skills, tackle the dude, punch him to death, subdue him, choke him to death. Those are gross movements. Choking, tackling, you know, wild hooks, jab, cross. Those are very gross movements, you know. So finely skilled movements is like when we're, say, sparring and we're like analyzing the person and we're just breaking them down, you know, bit by bit, piece by piece. Gross movement is, you know, you're out in the streets, somebody's attacking you, and you want to end that confrontation in less than 10 seconds. As soon as possible, you know. So I think, you know, that's one thing that he mentioned, which is important. Saying practice the technique when you're fresh. So it'd be good to either practice the technique as soon as we start class, or we do the strength training and then we stretch and then we practice the technique, because by the time we're done stretching, we should have our energy back. So he's saying don't do a shitload of strength training, you're all tired, and then all of a sudden you practice technique right after that. Then your body's just so tired, you're not going to be executing the techniques the way it's supposed to be. You know, so.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
The way it sounds like you said, what you just said is like it doesn't make sense to do the fine tuning right after doing all this fitness or stretching and you're all tired. It seems like he's saying just let nature work for you. Like, all right, you've done all this fine tuning, stretching and all this stuff, now you're tired, now let's get to the endurance stuff. It'll be, you know, more efficient.
Yeah.
I notice sometimes when I do the wooden dummy after we've done everything, like when I'm tired, it just doesn't feel as crisp.
Yeah.
Or it's sloppy, or, you know, not doing the movements correctly. I'm supposed to be doing a knee strike and I'm hitting at the shin because I'm too tired to lift my leg up all the way up to the What the hell kind of body is that?
I think that's one of the problems where you see a lot of martial artists that are out of shape because you have a martial arts school saying, okay, we teach martial arts. And people go there, okay, martial arts is just all fine tuning. It's like going to school and then for an hour straight, all you do is draw a gun and shoot, or you just keep pulling the trigger. It's all fine tuning, and then there's no fitness. So the people are really good at shooting, but then they're out of shape. So you see that in martial arts a lot. People will say, oh, I practice martial arts, but they're really out of shape because all they do is the fine tuning. So rarely do you find a school where they actually do both. And that's essentially the thing. You have to practice, he's recommending to practice the fine tuning first before you wear your body out with the strength training.
Say I have a newfound respect for Bruce because I didn't know he knew like in depth like how the muscles work and the percentage of like the economy of motion and even like the approach like, all right, well, we're going to fine tune stuff first and then like the fitness afterwards for like maximum results. And I mean, this is like you saying all this stuff in like the 60s and early 70s, so
he's like Yoda, man. Don't underestimate him. He's like this small guy. Can't do nothing. Lifts up the spaceship. His mind. You're like, holy shit.
You live here. I mean, even athletes during that time, you see people who's fit, but their definition of fitness is totally different. You see people nowadays, they look more like Bruce, like, sports trainers and all this stuff are saying the exact same things he's saying.
Yeah. The thing is, like, he took it to such a high level that in order to even impress anybody now, you gotta take it to an even higher level. In order to do that, a lot of these people end up resulting in like performance-enhancing drugs, because people, it's like you take it to such a high level. It's like you can't go any further unless you use science or something, And that's the thing, like there's a lot of people out there that are doing what Bruce was able to do back then, but it's not really a big deal now because it's like 40 years later and they've already seen that before, so it's not a big deal no more. Just like the TVs, like now they need, HD ain't good enough. They need like 4K and shit. You can't go around bragging, hey, I got an HD, man. So I mean, there's a lot of people like I think that are at Bruce, representing kind of at what Bruce was doing, but it's just not a big deal no more. So what's a big deal now is just when people just see something that they really haven't seen before, like a monster or something like that,
Right.
So you gotta, like, that's what you gotta do to impress people nowadays. It's like, it ain't a 2-finger push-up. You gotta be levitating yourself with no arms to push up with no arms or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Push up with no arms. Use his brain. brain.
But he took it so far, you know. It's kind of like Usain Bolt setting that record. I mean, for anybody to beat that is going to be really, really hard.
Yeah, it's gonna be a minute.
Yeah.
Y'all ever heard of Jack LaLanne?
Jack LaLanne sounds familiar, but I don't know what he is.
He was like one of the original fitness gurus back in the 50s, 60s. He had a show, you know, like a TV show where he was doing. He's the one that invented the jumping jacks.
Was he? Oh wow.
And he's got a. I think he recently died, but you know, he was like in his 90s, super fit.
So that's why it's called Jumping Jack.
Yeah. Jack LaLanne. Yeah.
Jumping Freddy.
Yeah, he's got a. You may have even seen his infomercials he used to do on his juicer. It's called the Jack LaLanne.
Was he kind of like a? I'm one to say this, but like his stature, he's like a smaller stature guy.
Smaller stature
Okay,
guy,
I think
yeah.
I might know what you're talking about. That's why it sounds familiar. I've probably seen one of his infomercials.
Probably, you know, he would have been old in the infomercial,
Right.
like all like energy and looking crazy and shit. Folks thought he was crazy back then, but now he's doing, you know, kind of setting the bar, set the standard back then. Ahead of his time, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like Bruce in some ways,
Oh, yeah,
kind of
yeah.
ahead of his time, you know.
Yeah, that's what they keep saying about him. He was ahead of his time.
I don't think he was ahead of the time. I just think we was just so late to the party.
Come on, you know. I saw this this Western movie. What the hell's the name of that movie?
New one? You talking about the Magnificent
Denzel
Seven?
Washington.
Yeah.
Magnificent Seven, yeah. It was whatever, but
Brandon Banks like, man, that's dope. I was like, man, whatever.
I applied to what we've been talking about around just the repetition and the, you know, like folks back then, or at least how they were depicted, motherfuckers could shoot their asses off because bullets were cheap as hell and that's all they was doing was shooting. They had time to master that skill where it was like a defined motor movement from the draw to the aiming to the, you know, it was mastered in them days because everybody carried guns and bullets was cheap as hell.
Shooting from the hip.
Shooting from the hip. I don't know how much that's Hollywood, but them motherfuckers shoot.